don't get you thinking about that, right? Yeah. All right. Good afternoon. Yeah. All right. We're having a good time. So everybody having a good time? All right. Great. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. It looked fantastic. The chili. Paul, how was that chili? Where are you, Paul? Is it good? All right. A few announcements. A couple of things. For tomorrow, we do have a little correction. For those of you who have yet to download the ILSHRM app, brought to you by the Symbolist, and you're still, all right, yeah, we can get a round of applause, and you're still looking at the brochure, there is an error in the brochure. For tomorrow morning, for the 7:30 concurrent sessions, there are 3 sessions in there that all say they start in the theater. Guess what? Yeah, even I can figure that out. That's not going to happen. So, here's what we have, the breakdown. Again, download the app if you have a device and you don't have to listen to me. They're all correct. Are you a simplifier? It's still going to be here. This is 7:30 session tomorrow morning. Strategic candidate screening will now be in Oak 1. And the Thomas Dolby, they blinded me with compliance. He will not be here. Will be in Venetian 2. All right? Another thing, I know you guys have you want your selfies. You got to get your selfies. The photo booth is only here today. It will not be here tomorrow, 309. Get your crew, get what you need to do. I was just told I have to do this, and I'm not looking forward to it. Photo booth 309. From our president, Kathy, for all of you, there's a lot of winks and nods here. There's some practice for this thing. You all know what this thing potentially is. We've talked about practice for this thing. That practice will be in the English room at 2:15 for this thing. Wink, wink. You all know what I'm talking about. Okay, a couple other items. One of the things in my role and how I got involved here with Illinois SHRM is to plan the social event. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this social event, let you know that I quote-unquote volunteered for this last year at Illinois SHRM at the social event. Apparently, I was talking to Sabrina and everybody else. It's a great time. It's fantastic. You know, let me know if I can help out anything I can. Sabrina goes, you're on. I get an email from Sabrina the next morning. Hey, John, thank you for volunteering. You're planning the social event. So for those of you attending the social event tonight, Sabrina does not forget. She will keep an eye on you if you do volunteer. She will be all over you. I will be, too, because it happened to me. So I have to find next year's chair. One of the things, 2-year term. Let's see how the 1-year term goes first. So after a long day here at the conference and interacting, we do have a little bit of time for you to come enjoy some cocktails, enjoy some light apps. And luckily, our keynote for this afternoon has graciously offered to sponsor this event. So you get an opportunity to, how about that? How about, thank you so much, thank you. So you get an opportunity to network with Kris and Laurie, ask them all the questions, find out what face you are. You'll learn about that in a second. Huh? Yes, first drink is on Kris and Laurie, just to let you guys know. But after that, you're on your own. This will be at the clubhouse. The clubhouse is at the Oak Brook Mall, not too far from here. Word is there's this unicorn in the lobby, so you guys got to go and try and check that out. So just keep an eye out for that. If you need a ride, John Jorgensen, where are you? Raise your hand. And they asked me. Apparently, John rented this big yellow bus, and if you all need, I'm kidding. No, but if you do need a ride or any transportation, see John. He's got the Ask Me button. Okay, next. Kris and Laurie, I hate to do this to you, but after this session, at 2:15, there will be cupcakes. Yeah, the cupcakes in the exhibit hall. Now, there's a thing to these cupcakes. You're going to grab one, just one, maybe back for 2. Look on the bottom of your cupcake. You may see a number. take that number, walk to that booth, at the corresponding booth, the number on your cupcake. Chat it up with the vendor, see how they're doing, and then they are going to give you a ticket. This ticket could be your golden ticket to 2014 Illinois SHRM, August 4th and 5th, next year, Drury Lane. How about the guess? All right. Keep your ticket. We will be announcing tomorrow at 1 o'clock who will be that winner. You must be present to win. All right? So grab a cupcake, get a number, go talk to some vendors. Win a free registration. Speaking of, if I did mention, registration is now open for 2014. It is here August 4th and 5th. Sign up by September 20th. And you get it and lock in this year's rate because we're jacking it up after that a lot. Go to the SHRM bookstore. I'm sure Dr. Crosby was signing his book. We have a lot of the keynotes, both current and past, that will be signing books. A lot of great content, so please make sure you check that out if you haven't been there already. Okay, enough of me talking. I have the pleasure here. We have two keynotes that will be our keynote for this afternoon. Two pioneers in the social media and HR space have graciously decided to come and speak with us. First, I'd like to introduce Laurie Ruettiman. Laurie is a speaker, a writer, a social media strategist. You may know her as a creator of Punk Rock HR, the cynical girl. But she also tells me she used to work in HR space. She was a leader, HR leader at such companies as Pfizer, Kemper, Alberto Cova, and Monsanto. She is SPHR certified. So shout out to HRCI. We do have some certification. All right, all right. And also we have Kris Dunn. Kris, stand up. All right. Kris is he's a chief HR officer and partner with Kinetics. Kinetics is a recruitment process outsourcing firm, RPO. He's based out of Hotlanta. Does some time between Atlanta and Birmingham, right? But you may know him as an influential writer for the HR Capitalist and also founding member of Fistful of Talent. Is that correct? All right. I know you guys are some popular blogs that you do read. Not only is that from his former companies, Charter Communications, Source Medico, and Daxco, he as well, certifiable SPHR. So there we go. So how about that? We got two keynote speakers here, SPHR certified. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kris and Laurie is going to kick us off.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Wow. Thanks, John, for that very thoughtful and warm welcome. I hear you've been working all day, right? Right? Stepped in. Can we get a round of applause for John Hudson, everybody? Yeah. I have to tell you, I was born and raised in Chicago on the Northwest Side in the glamorous neighborhood of Avondale and Addison. Do I have any neighbors? Anybody? Yeah. All right, Northwest Side. Okay, good, perfect. So back in the day, in the mid-'80s, when I was just a wee little girl, my grandmother would take me to the Drury Lane Theater to see musicals. So I have seen Jesus Christ Superstar. What else have I seen? Maybe Godspell here. Anything Goes. This was like a big deal to come to the Drury Lane Theater. So if my grandmother were alive today, she would be so proud of me being here. She wouldn't know what the hell an HR conference is, though. She'd have no idea. But she would be proud. So thank you for having me today. And I did want to say one other thing before we get started. Sabrina, John, all of the other amazing Illinois SHRM volunteers have put on a great show for you, and they do this because they're amazing volunteers. So if you are passionate about human resources, if you're passionate about the profession, you want to do something cool and interesting, planning for 2014 starts today. So see Sabrina, see John Jorgensen, and volunteer. It means so much. So can we get a round of applause for the volunteers today? Yeah, amazing. So just so you know, John gave me a great introduction, but my name is Laurie Ruettiman. I'm a human resources speaker, writer, and consultant. I used to have a job for some companies you know and some companies you don't. The biggest company where I worked was Pfizer, which is a pharmaceutical company, and I know all of you know Pfizer because they make Lipitor, they make Xanax, and they make Viagra. That covers everybody in this room. Lipitor, Xanax, Viagra. You know it's true. So that's my background, and I have been a consultant and a writer and a speaker for the past 6 years, and that's how I know my good friend, Kris Dunn. So Kris, why don't you tell us who you are?
Thanks, Laurie. Hey, everybody. Let's get the beach ball out. You guys have the beach ball over here? Because we're gonna knock it like they do at the baseball park. Do you see it? I'm joking. The jury would not allow that, although they will allow. Dwayne's seen this, the 20-foot pit. So I gotta stay away from this. Hey, like you and like Laurie, I'm a lifelong HR professional. I got a couple blogs, HR Capitalist, also founded Fistful of Talent. There's a lot of people that write for Fistful of Talent in the room. Laurie writes for us as well. We've got former writers here. Like I counted literally probably 5 or 6.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so check out those blogs if you get a chance. And I would tell you before we get into some of the content, Laurie and I, this is the first time Laurie and I have co-presented. Correct? We've done panels together. First time we've done a keynote. And we're going to get into the 9 faces of HR. Because I'm making kind of the audacious claim, and Laurie's helping me make it, that you can take the million HR professionals in America, and you can break them down basically into 9 faces or 9 personas. And I've learned a lot about Laurie. All of it good, by the way. And I'm going to point out one thing that I learned about her. That how many of you have read Laurie's blogs? Show of hands, right? You can clap. You can clap if you want. That's a good number of people. Here's what I learned about.
Wait. There was like 6 people who've read my blog. What the hell?
There's more. Come on, it's dark out there. Let me do my thing. So here's what so punk rock HR was like my favorite blog. I love the title. And this is the contrast. And this is where you get into the 9 faces. Go ahead and hold it up. She knows where I'm going. She brought a clipboard to this presentation.
Because I'm punk rock. I have a clipboard. That's right.
So we're excited about it. Laurie, why don't you tell them what we're here to talk about today?
Yeah, well, let's actually start with who we're not here to talk about today. And yeah. Oh, wait, you guys are liars because I worked in human resources for almost 20 years, and I know there are 3 things that HR ladies and men like to talk about: office gossip, celebrity gossip, and what we're having for lunch, right? That's it. Every freaking day, that's all we talk about. So when I go to ILSHRM keynotes, I very often sit and listen to some guy who's not in HR and not certified talk to me about big data and cloud computing, and that's all really fabulous, but that doesn't have anything to do with me or my professional development. So, well, I want to talk about Michelle Obama, and can I get a show of hands? Who likes her bangs? Anybody? Yeah, like I liked her bangs. And I really like Kanye's new album. In fact, I love it. I think it's great. We're not going to talk about that today. I don't like the baby named North, though. I think that's weird, okay? So we're going to talk about you and your professional development.
So we're not talking about that. Here's what we're talking about. Okay? Let's just get into it, right? Hey, and the other thing that drives Laurie crazy about me is we'll get into some of the factors. I'm a low rules guy. She's got the clipboard, I'm low rules, okay? But we're here to talk about personas and the 9 faces. So the cop, how many of you know the show? Call it out. Reno 911, right? The cop is one of the faces you'll meet in our time together. So again, big audacious claim that we can break down the whole universe of HR into 9 faces. It's field tested. I can't tell you that I've written a dissertation on it, but we've done multiple searches, and I'll run you through that. But that's who we're here to talk about today. Some of the things we're going to talk about, things you would expect at an HR conference. We're going to talk about performance and potential. We're going to talk about change. We're going to talk about big words, right? Innovation, value, stuff like that. It's all going to come down to how you build a team, and probably more importantly, how you don't build a team. Because some of the things we're going to talk about today are transferable across different functional areas. So those are some of the things. Also, 9 faces of HR. So I've been at Kinetics for over 3 years now. So this has been on my mind. And one of the reasons why it was valuable for me to kind of draw Laurie in to do this with me is Laurie was actually somebody out in the field that really motivated me to think about this model and put it together. So in my 3 years, what's this look like, by the way, from a recruiting perspective? Anybody? It's a recruiting funnel. Okay, so when you think about the 9 faces of HR, if you go out to the Kinetic site now, we've probably got like 5 or 6 HR searches going, as high as like VP of HR, as low as like HR representative. Okay, and these numbers, starting with like total applicants, phone screens, live interviews, and then hires, these numbers are representative of the work that's been done as the model's been developed. So it's tested, and we do that a couple of different ways. Like we test it not only with candidates like you, but we test it with the people that hire people like you and I. We test it with the CEOs or the divisional VPs, whoever's responsible for hiring that people. So we've got some activity with the model. I like it. I believe in it, and I want to share it with you. Okay, so if you're checking your smartphones, as you will, right? I know all of you are just active on social. You're not doing any emails. If you're checking your smartphones and all of a sudden this big orange glare comes up because you were bored with the last section, come on back, because we've got like new content for you, okay? And of course, that won't happen with Laurie. It'll only happen with me, right? Where we've got to draw you back in. So I've got 2 quick sections before we get to the 9 faces and we tell you about those. I've got 2 quick sections that I want to talk to you a little bit about. First one is what I would consider the holy grail of performance, okay? And pretty quick story. A lot of slides. We're going to plow through these pretty quickly. If you think about performance management right now, you guys read it. You guys love it. I see some heads nodding over here. You know, big, complex systems are really ugly and on life support. Can I get a show of hands or a clapping? Is that on life support? Now, keep clapping if you still have to deal with the big, complex systems. I think that's probably like about 60%, right? So what we're finding in the field and what you guys are experiencing, what you're hearing some at Illinois SHRM, is you're hearing that these things are on life support. So think about like the big forms. Like if you go past 2 pages, you know, I would tell you that my experience in the field says that you're already dead with the managers you serve. Now, a lot of you don't control that, but you know it to be true. So we want to set that up as kind of a cornerstone. Big, complex competency models. Hey, they look great on paper, and then you bring them in, and they're just really, really thick and tough to get to.
So Kris, go back to that other slide, because I want to do justice to the vendors out there who do a great job with performance management. So I think you and I both know one, which is Sonar 6, now Cornerstone On Demand. That is a really great product that's really rethinking performance, having ongoing conversations. There's a few of them, right? Right. And some of the work that was done by Sonar 6, and there's lots of great vendors out there that do great stuff from a performance management perspective. What we're finding is that when people like you, like if you started with a blank sheet of paper from a performance perspective, and a lot of the vendors are trying to get to this as well, people like you and I, like if we started it with a blank sheet of paper, we wouldn't start with the competency models, right? We'd start with the end in mind. We'd start with a picture about what the story we want to tell. So this picture, just to go ahead and intro it, how many of you are familiar with performance versus potential 9-box grid? Show of hands. Okay, I got about like 40%, and that's good. So some of this will be a rehash to you, and it'll be brand new for some of you. But what smart people in the field are doing, like you and I, is if they start from scratch and they take all the BS out of performance management, they're starting with a picture that they want to share whoever they support and whoever they report to. So this is really a scatter plot, and people like Sonar 6, now Cornerstone On Demand, a lot of vendors can provide you with what Sonar 6 used to call a helicopter view, which is performance versus potential, so your system kind of blends into that, and then they're going to do the scatter plot to show you where your entire workforce or a department or a team falls on that performance versus potential scale. Now, where do you want to be? Do you want to be lower left or top right? Go ahead and call it out. Top right, right? Everybody wants to be top right. And by the way, if you re-engineer your system, guess what? The inflation, the rating inflation, doesn't matter. You know how it goes, right? They'll figure out the system, the rating inflation, that scatter plot will start to go to the top right. All right, so let's keep moving. Performance versus potential, real quick. What we see in the field and what's going on, like if you look to simplify and you look to get to this simple picture, you've got to like start from scratch. And if you go more than 2 pages, you're probably already dead. So what people are doing on performance versus potential, they're really doing 2 things.
First thing is, and by the way, that's not a phone cord, okay? That's an attempt at a DNA strand. My Google image skills are limited, right? But that's a DNA strand.
Wait, I wonder what it looks like. Shout out. What do you guys think that looks like? Skeleton? That's what I said. Yeah, skeleton.
I think it looks like a new age, like, phone cord.
Oh, I
Remember
like
those
it. I was
things,
also thinking
those phones that you used to pick up?
Yeah, I was thinking piano as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, piano. Yeah.
So
Okay, we'll work on that. Thank you.
Performance and potential. What people are doing is on the potential side, how many of you have corporate values? Almost everybody has a set of corporate values. They hang on the wall. Sometimes they sneak into your performance management system. What people are doing if they start from scratch these days on performance management, they're getting to things like potential factors, which really simply says across every position in your company, what dictates with any position? What are the common things that dictate in your company how someone gets hired, how they get rewarded, and ultimately if they get results but they do it in the wrong way, how they get fired? Okay, and that kind of becomes the DNA or potential factors of your company. And then on the performance side, really what they're doing is they're getting away from big complex forms, and whatever your job is or whatever the job is in the organization, they're basically saying, give me the 5 most important things. You can pick a number, and the research will show that ultimately, like the research will show 5's not the right number. Actually, 3 is the right number, just from a goals perspective. What are you responsible for delivering to the organization, okay? So smart companies are not only doing potential factors, but then they're just saying, hey, plain and simple, Dwayne Lay, your job. What are the 5 most important things? They're not developing a long list like a job description. Their job description's fine if you need it legally, but then when it comes from a performance perspective, it's all forced choice. Does that make sense?
Hey, Kris, do you remember the days of cascading goals, right? Where your CEO or your CFO would start out with goals and they would just roll down
Sure.
and roll down. And suddenly you had 27,000 goals for the year
You know,
and
it's
none
fun-
of them that
yeah.
you can make a difference on.
It's funny you say that because you gave me some goals for this presentation, and they were actually more than 5. I'm joking.
They were like 6. Come on now.
Okay.
One was show up. That was one of them.
So think about this from a simplification perspective. People that start from scratch start with that picture in mind, and they're doing performance and potential in a different way, and what they're arriving at. So about 30-40% of you had heard of the 9-box grid before. For the rest, so this is a rehash for you. For the rest of you, this is fairly new. So if they go performance versus potential, and they set up performance management like that, they end up with a grid that looks like this. 9-box grid, and obviously upper right is where your stars are. High performance, high potential. You could have, high performance, middling potential. There's a couple different flavors where you would say, hey, that's my A team. The people in the middle are well placed, and you're trying to develop them and coach them up and get them somewhere else on the screen. The orange box obviously is that's the Jack Welch zip code, right?
Yeah, right.
The lower 10% that you may remove. But this is the 9-box grid, and you see performance and potential up the side. The way this is represented here, vertical axis is potential. So it's potential factors. Performance is whatever that job has to deliver in terms of the 5 most important things.
So, I have a story. When I worked at Pfizer, we thought we were really revolutionary, and we took 6 months to take the 9-box grid and make it a 6-box grid. That's how freaking cutting edge we were back then. And I think a lot of companies really feel that that's the way to do it. If you just kind of lop off that top level and start to scatter people differently, you're doing great HR. And so Kris and I are going to show you a little bit of a different model, but that's something that you may see in your organizations, and just keep that in mind as you're watching our presentation today.
So the other thing the organization will do is they'll seek more complexity, right? So I've got a client at Kinetics that I'm actually helping with this, and Laurie, like one of their questions, we didn't plan on talking about this. 9-box grid, they love it. Here we go, like we're getting ready to go, we're getting ready to deploy, and they're like, hey, can we double the size of the grid, right? Because the complexity always comes back in. We want to over-engineer things, which is why the simplicity of the 9-box grid and just kind of performance versus potential, the way I defined it, kind of works. Okay, so let's have some fun. Okay, I started like with HR bloggers, right? Because they're easy to make fun of, but I ended up going to the Jackson. So we're going to do performance versus potential, and we're going to do it on the Jackson family, okay? So imagine you're Joe Jackson. Who remembers Joe Jackson, right? It's like the James Brown of our time, like finding his offspring from missing beats.
Or he's the British guy, right, from the 80s who did Steppin' Out, right?
Good point.
Yeah. Okay,
Good
but Joe
point.
Jackson, Daddy Jackson. Yeah.
All right, so I'll give you the first one. It's pretty easy, right? I'm going to put Michael Jackson at the top right. High performance, high potential. You look at unit sales. We don't say CDs anymore, right? I can't do that or I'm not cool. So you look at unit sales, clearly, you know, up there from a performance perspective, and I think everybody would agree, regardless of what you think about, you know, his facial surgery, you know,
Or
blood
his untimely
transfusions,
death,
whatever,
right, yeah.
you would have to say he's high potential. So let's go here. Laurie, you give me your comments. You guys can shout it out. Where do you think, who's the person you would put highest potential, a little lower performance than Michael in the Jackson family?
Oh, I heard different ones.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Laurie, you're going to have to break it. You give us your
All right.
thoughts. What do you think?
So I know I'm short. I know you guys can't see me, but I'll stand up anyway. My guess, and actually I know this, is Janet Jackson. We are part of the Rhythm Nation, right? Aren't we? Back in 1989, this was the first concert I ever went to at the Rosemont Horizon, okay? Because my mom thought, Janet Jackson, she's harmless. Guess what? She's kind of a nut job too, right? Yeah. But I think that's probably a good place to put Janet, don't you think?
I think so. You probably just like the socialist hats that they had.
I like the
during
dancing.
the Rhythm Nation
Wait,
tour,
you've
be
been to the
honest with
Rosemont
you.
Horizon before, though, haven't you?
Yes.
You tell them that story.
Well, I've just been to the Rosemont Horizon about 8 times, but it was always for DePaul basketball games in the winter. It's
Do we have DePaul
not really
fans
a
in here?
pleasant place to be.
Yeah.
DePaul in the house.
That's
All
right.
right, so let me ask you this real quick. Just call it out. I'm going to give you the person. Tito Jackson. Where's he fall?
Who's that? Right?
Okay, I see people going like this, right? All right, here's where we've got Tito. Performance versus potential. So he's a Jackson. So he's got to have some potential. Right? It's in the DNA. It's in the DNA. So he's got to have some potential. But from a performance perspective, how many of you own the Tito Jackson CD? Anybody? I don't either. Okay, so from a unit sales perspective, you get the thing. How many of you knew there was a Tito Jackson CD? There is.
Is it a Christmas CD?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew
A
it.
very special Tito
Very
Jackson
special
Christmas.
holiday.
Absolutely. Okay, the last one. Okay, the last one.
Who's the last one?
Low. That's all I need.
Oh, Jermaine would have been a good guess,
LaToya.
though.
We talked about what we weren't going to talk about. You know, it's kind of a TMZ story, right? I think LaToya is actually appearing Friday night in Schaumburg at a club.
No, she's at the casino on River
She's at the
Road.
casino?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Very good. All right, so that's performance versus potential, 9-box grid. Remember it because that's where we're going with the 9 faces of HR. All right, big orange screen. Anybody looking up? Guy in the orange shirt is. That's odd synergy. Okay, real quick. One more thing, and we're going to get into the 9 faces of HR. Who thinks that there's a stereotype about HR people in America? Nobody? There's no stereotypes? All right, so we want to talk to you a little bit about what we see in the field and just the stereotype issue with HR. You guys know it because you guys live it, all right? The stereotype that people outside of HR have about us is we're very good at certain things, okay? The tricky part is that the things that people believe we're good at, I can tell you from a standpoint of recruiting for HR people, aren't necessarily the things that people will pay a market premium for, okay? And that's where we're going with this whole 9 faces of HR thing. So when you think about the preconceived notion, they think we're good at developing handbooks, right? And we've all done it. I know I have, I know Laurie has, everybody in here has done a handbook. And because we do handbooks, we're good at rules, right? We're good at saying no. And then I've got like a note on SHRM here. The other thing is that people associate us with the body of knowledge, right? Comp, benefits, employee relations, all critical things. And if you and I are good at them, we can have successful careers, but there's still a stereotype of what we can and can't do. So a lot of us don't get invited to certain type of conversations in your company because of what these stereotypes are.
Wait, I want to say some other stuff that we're good at.
What else are we good at,
We're
Laura?
good at planning company picnics, right? Oh, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We're also good at planning walkathons and 5Ks. The other thing we're good at is handing out pedometers. How many of you have handed out pedometers? Show of hands. Oh man, I hate
See,
those
I'm-
pedometers.
I'm going to give you, see, you're doing you're doing the ones where people are groaning. I'm going to give you one that you guys will like. We're good at whacking people. Right?
So good.
So I'm not going to the company picnic. I'm whacking you on Friday. I'm just saying. So we're good at that. Anything else, Laurie?
No,
Can you one-up me on the whacking
you
people?
You closed us out on that one.
Okay,
That was
very
good.
good. Very good.
Oh, pushing paper, I heard.
Pushing paper, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hey, are we good at
Rules.
fax machines? We're really good at fax machines.
All right, so all of these things and the things mentioned, there's a stereotype there. Check out this quote, okay? Because a lot of us get comfortable related to what's expected of us and we stay in that box, okay? So there's a guy named Bill Gates, and he's got some confidence and he's got some swagger, as noted by this.
He's never looked so good.
He
Never.
looks good in this picture, I got to admit. So the quote is, in 1981, he makes this quote. You know, 640K of memory, that should be enough for anybody. We're good. Okay, Bill Gates, smartest person in the room, 640K of memory should be enough for anybody. That's in the planning stages of Windows in terms of what was going to be required. So if Bill Gates makes an assumption that something is good enough, think about what that means not only for HR, but for every profession related to innovation. That's an amazing quote to me, and I'd like to thank Laurie for finding that stellar picture.
I think he looks handsome, sorta. It's weird. I
He
saw him in
does.
60
He's-
Minutes. He
hey,
doesn't look that good now.
He was confident that
Yeah.
640K of memory. So it's not K anymore, right? What is it? Is it M? No. It's like gig.
Unless
And
you have a BlackBerry. Come on.
And, oh, yeah, and whatever comes after that. So Bill Gates, when it comes to innovation, and, Microsoft, we could bash them for innovation, but they're pretty innovative in their day. I mean, spawned an industry. So when you think about, you and I in HR, that body of knowledge being good enough, and that's all we need to do, the Bill Gates quote, I think, is cautionary, right? Because we have to think broader than that. Let me give you a couple more studies, and then we're going to start moving into the faces. So how many of you are familiar with McKinsey, right? Consulting firm, smartest guys in the room, smartest guys and gals, okay? So back in 1986, they did a forecast in terms of the number of wireless subscribers that would be present in the year 2000. Got it? That's it. So they did a study. It's a forecast. And that dot represents the number of wireless subscribers they thought would be present in the year 2000. I won't even tell you what the number is because it doesn't matter. We'll just do it through dots because I like simple stuff. This is what it actually turned out to be. So McKinsey, top end, missed that much from a prediction perspective. So again, from the standpoint of you and I thinking what we do right now is good enough and that the market's really going to value that, either now or over time, not true. Sorry to tell you. And my work in the field, placing people like you, tells me that time and time again. So what'd they miss on? Well, McKinsey missed on technology, right? They missed on just innovation in terms of how things were going to get done. So to the left is Laurie's first cell phone when she was 12,
come
rolling
on,
around,
stop.
and God knows what she had to do to afford the plan. Because I don't know how many of you had a phone like that, right? And it cost a lot of money to have that plan. But they missed on technology, right? Because what they didn't know is that by the year 2000, the Motorola StarTAC and related products would change the game. And then if they would have done a forecast for 2010, they would have been blown away because we're all carrying the equivalent of computers.
No, we're not all
in our
carrying that.
pocket.
I want to know how many people in the room are carrying that phone from 2000. How many of you still have a flip phone like that? Anybody? Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, you do. Oh, lady, you got to upgrade. Oh, man. It's time.
Hey, don't buy the hype.
time.
You can be great in a lot of different areas. If you like that flip phone, you hang on to the flip phone. All right, so Bill Gates missed. Okay? So when you're thinking about, if you're career-minded and you're thinking about what the market values and you've got goals, or if you haven't thought about it, now's the time to think about it because that's what we're here for. And by the way, this presentation, we set it up with performance in some of these studies. We're getting ready to get into the 9 phases. This is about you. It's about you and me, and it's about career planning. That's one of the reasons I love thinking about the model. So McKinsey missed mainly because of innovation. Give you one more quick one. So there's a meta-analysis, and I'll read this for those of you in the back that can't see it. So a group called Tetlock did a meta-analysis of 80,000 expert forecasts, like the one I just showed you with McKinsey, that happened across 20 years, okay? Got it? So meta-analysis, how accurate are they? You know what they found? They found those hundreds of experts, I'll read it, had the same accuracy as a group of dart-throwing monkeys.
By the way, our favorite slide, just so you know, we love this freaking monkey. We love him.
And by the way, finding those monkeys was not only a recruiting challenge, but there were organized labor issues to deal with as well. So again, you know, all of these expert forecasts, nobody knows what the future holds. And this is kind of our jumping off point into the 9 faces, because here's the big thing to remember, okay? It's like, if any of you, in any group that I do this to, and this is like the 6th time I've done this keynote, I know in a room like this, I'll give you the percentages because I don't know the number of people. I know in a room like this, there are 25% of you that are pretty engaged from a career perspective and want to do different things. There are another 25% that you feel like you're well placed, and because of family, travel, you know, or inability to travel, things like that, you're good. And then there's about 50% in the middle, you're not sure. So that's why we're doing this from a career planning perspective, and we're thankful for Illinois SHRM to bring us in so we can talk you through this model, because ultimately what I found, so we've done close like 50 searches at Kinetics, HR people, nothing else. Okay, and we do other things, but I'm just talking to you about the HR slice of that. When people talk to us about what they want, they expect that the box in terms of you making the HR buses run on time, they just expect check. They just expect that's going to happen. And then when they start actually valuing candidates, it always comes back to the ability to think broader than what you know in that knowledge base. Always does, really at every level. And we're going to get in the model, and you'll see that there's an early, mid, and late career thing to this. Laurie, any closing comments before we start moving to the faces?
No, but I wonder how many people actually know these pictures. Do you know what this is from? Kris, why don't you tell them where these images are from, because they're cool.
The images are from the Think Different campaign that Apple did, and I forget how long ago that was, but these are all like great thinkers in a variety of industries and culture, arts that were pioneers in terms of whatever they did in the world.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about that and what it takes in human resources, because whether you're on board or not, innovation always happens. And so what we're trying to do, and everybody pay attention, we're on number 3 now, right? Kris, are you with us?
I am.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. What we're trying to do is really systemize and think about how do we create a common language, a common lexicon to define greatness in human resources, but also, quite honestly, figure out who sucks. Because in this room, look around, some of you really suck as HR professionals. Or on the flip side, some of you really hate HR and you want to do other things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, your career progression, but I want to start here. Because when you're hiring for an HR professional, whether you're an HR leader or you're a CEO who's looking to hire an HR professional, an HR generalist, it's very difficult with the common body of language and knowledge from SHRM and all this jargon out there to figure out who's great and who isn't. So do you guys know who's on the screen? Do you know these people? I'm going to tell you. It's Susan Avelo, right? Everybody give her a round of applause. She's been having a week. Then we have our good friend John Hudson. We have Sabrina Baker, who has no voice. Give her a round of applause. Oh, here we go. We have John Jorgensen. All right, John. Then we have Donna Rogers. Donna, are you here? Yeah? Oh, there you are. Hey, nice to see you. And then finally, we have my good friend Dave Ryan. Everybody give Dave Ryan a round of applause. Some of these people on this screen suck, okay? They are not good HR professionals, or maybe they're all great, but it's very difficult to define who's great and to figure out who's a rock star if you don't have the right language. So our 9 faces model that Kris created and that I'm here to help with really tries to systemize and organize performance, potential, but also where you are within your career and whether or not you can innovate, you can drive change, you have the ability to think quickly on your feet, where your ego is, where you're willing to move, can you mentor, are you willing to mentor? And if HR isn't the career for you, what else you can do in order to make your life more fulfilling. So Kris, do you want to start talking about the model?
Yeah, sure will. So you guys remember the 9-box grid, right? All right, so we're going to change the 9-box grid. We're going to use those 9 boxes, though, to get into the 9 faces of HR. So when you think about performance and potential, work with me real quick. First thing we're going to do is we're going to change performance on this grid to really knowledge level. Okay, you follow me? And remember that body of knowledge is something that's real valuable to a lot of people. So performance on the 9-box grid becomes knowledge. Okay, and one of the things we've seen is that knowledge, not always, but for the most part, time in the industry equates into more knowledge. Okay, it equates into your ability to sit for the PHR, to sit for the SPHR, and whether you do that or not, you're stacking knowledge over time.
Can we do a show of hands about the SPHR and the PHR? How many of you have your PHR? Quite a few. Good job. How many have SPHR? And how many of you are global? Oh, very good. So
I
Kris,
was wondering about the global thing.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, that's excellent. So I think body of knowledge is still tremendously important at times and still relevant. So I just wanted to make that point.
And when we get to the grid, you'll see what we've done is we're going to go early career, mid-career, senior level related to the 9 faces of HR. So performance becomes knowledge, okay? Because that equates what you can do for someone in terms of making the buses run on time. You guys with me? Okay, and you'll see it on the grid in just a second. Now, something that's a little harder to get your head around is that potential, as we break down the 9 faces of HR, becomes the ability to innovate, drive change, and add value, okay? So work with me on this. So I'm a long-term HR professional, like manager, director, VP, started from the bottom, made my way up the ladder.
You did. You started from the bottom.
Yeah. So I'm like a lot of you. So started low, moved up as the knowledge level stacked up. When I joined Kinetics, how many of you have how many have had an assessment you've had people come to you continuously to try and get you to buy? Everybody?
Like
right?
MBTI or DISC.
There's all
Berkman.
kinds of assessments out there. So we use one that I like called Talent DNA. And I only tell you that because I was always skeptical of assessments, then really started digging in a little bit in terms of this model. So we've got a PhD group that helps us with this assessment called Talent DNA. And in working with them, they basically gave us 4 factors as we kind of dug into this model. The best 4 factors that they had at their disposal to drive and identify the ability to innovate, drive change, and add value were these 4 things. And I'm going to walk you through them, okay? And then we're going to get into the faces. First one is cognitive processing speed, okay? And basically what that means is it's not IQ, it's your ability and my ability to have a bunch of data coming at you in a really fast capacity, really fast fashion, and our ability to take all that data in and make really quick, accurate decisions on that. That's cognitive processing speed in terms of our definition, okay? So that's factor 1 in terms of the ability to innovate, drive change, and add value. Second one is assertiveness. And assertiveness is what all of you think it is, all right? Assertiveness, if you're highly assertive, you've got the ability to confront both people and issues that need to be confronted, to take action on those things and not wait around. If you're low assertive, then you're like a lot less likely to confront those things because it feels like confrontation. Okay, that's my layperson explanation to you. Rules orientation is one I love, okay? If you're a high rules person, you go into any environment, the first fluid situation that you have to deal with, you're gonna reach for the ops manual up here, and you're gonna pull it down, and you're gonna go like this. And you're gonna see how the company or the enterprise wants you to deal with that fluid situation. You like rules. You like to know what the playbook is. Low rules people love the chaos. And they don't want the operations manual. A lot of them don't respect the operations manual, and they want to be presented with the ability to kind of create the roadmap, if you will. So that's rules orientation. Then detail orientation is the extent you're either highly organized or you're not very organized at all. Do you make lists? Do you carry a clipboard? Do you clearly wing it? That's
Do you pack a belt?
Yeah.
Do you pack a belt?
Yeah. Do you pack a belt?
Do you pack a belt,
It's a good
Kris?
one. Took a little trip this morning to buy a belt. I mean, who doesn't, right? So these are the 4 factors that combined together as we work through the PhD firm. These were the best 4 factors we could find to identify your ability and my ability to innovate, drive change, and add value. And with that, so you guys with me? Knowledge level, early, mid, senior level, and then ability to innovate, drive change, and add value through those 4 factors. So we ready? You ready to look at the 9 phases? There's what the grid looks like. Laurie, you want to walk them through it a little bit?
Well, I just want to stop right here because when I looked at the grid, I plotted myself on here without knowing anything, right? And I'll tell you, I thought I was Angelina Jolie, right?
Everybody wants to be the girl
does.
with the gun.
Totally, and I like guns, right? So I'm the assassin. I'm gonna kill it. But that changed once I learned more about the grid. So I want everybody to keep an open mind. I want you to think about who you are. I want you to listen to us. But the really fun thing you can do is think about the people you hate in HR, right? Your boss, your nemesis, all the people that really drive you crazy, that one HR assistant who just won't shut up. And think about where they are on the grid. And then, as we get to the end of the session, think about whether or not your assumptions were right. So that's the kind of fun part, right, Kris?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to echo that, I mean, when we start talking about this model, people always think about who am I? And then they think about who are the people I love and hate. In the world of HR. A couple of other things I want to do before we move forward on this is the other thing is, so we've done a lot of work through those searches. So this is a great way, I found the model's a great way to get my head around and to help people who are seeking people like you determine what they need. Here's what happens. When you show this model to somebody and you say, these are the 9 phases that I can deliver to you. That's it. These are the 9 phases. People automatically, whoever it is, whether it's CEO of a smaller company, divisional head, global HR lead, whatever, where do you think they automatically go? Shout it out. Gandhi. Good,
Gandhi.
good. So they go to Gandhi. They automatically start migrating to the right, okay, just based on the imagery and the names and things like that. But the thing we always walk them through is just because you want a certain face in your organization doesn't mean that's the right face for the organization. It doesn't mean that your culture can actually support that person, right? Because there's a lot of cultures out there that if you plug in an assassin, and we're going to take you through what this means, if you plug in an assassin, it's going to end poorly.
Yeah, they can't handle an assassin. Come on.
And by the way, I'll give you one more snapshot before we get into these. Half the assassins we've placed, okay, and we've placed a few, half the assassins we placed aren't with the company that we placed them with 2 years later. And I firmly believe that that's a match issue because there's a place for all these roles. Last thing I've got to say is that we're going to talk, we got the Reno 911 guy in short shorts for the cop, right? There's a place for every one of the 9 faces, first of all, in the world of HR, and there's a place for every one of the 9 faces in an HR organization of any size. Now, the smaller the organization, the more problematic it gets because you got to make choices, and you don't maybe have 9 people on your team. And that's a factor, more often than not for a lot of the people. But believe it or not, people will always migrate to the right because they think it's a cool place to be.
And I just want to say before you move on, we talk a little bit about, Kris and I talk about this blending and how in certain situations you may be one thing and in another situation you may be another. But as you listen to us, we're going to talk about DNA markers, who you are as a human being. So of course there may be times where you're one versus another, but what we're really talking about are personae, who you are down to your core. So think about that. Think about who you are and who you want to be as you look at this model.
And before we get into the first phase, look at the grid and think about the vertical axis going bottom to top. Think about those rows. That's your knowledge level. That's your career level. So that bottom row, think early career. Middle row, think mid-career. And then the top row, think senior level. Okay, and that almost always follows the positions you've held, the size of companies you've worked for, and obviously the knowledge you have. And then the columns go from low ability to innovate and drive change to the highest ability to innovate and drive change on the right. Got it? All right, here we go. This is your first guy, okay? The mall security guard.
Wait, does everybody know who this is?
Paul Blart.
Paul Blart.
Paul Blart, okay? So this is the bottom. We'll show you the grid again just with the mall security guard in there. This is the bottom left box. Low ability to innovate, early career, That's your mall security guard. So when you think about, remember those 4 factors real quick: cognitive processing speed, rules orientation, detail orientation, and assertiveness. The quote from this guy is, "Nobody knows the mall better than I do." Right? How many of you have ever heard this confidence coming from like an HR assistant or an HR coordinator that will bust your knuckles on a misform? Anybody?
How many of you have said it? That's what I want to know.
We've all known this person. So this is the early career person. So not a lot of knowledge, but really through their DNA. If you look at the bottom right, their early career, and they're very, very high rules orientation. They're very high detail orientation. Processing speed, cognitive processing speed, and the assertiveness really doesn't matter because they really define their world through the rules and the details and the fact that they're early career. And that's where they are. So you've got somebody bottom left box, okay? How many of you, this is where like self-identification gets tough. How many of you think that you're a mall security guard? And by the way, we tag them in a way where nobody will raise their hands. I guarantee you we'll have like some mall security guards in a crowd this size because it just really follows like the size of the population and the fact of who we know attends these things. We can do it by title. And we're going to talk a little bit later about what we've seen across those like 50 fills in terms of what percentage of the world is actually a mall security guard. All right?
Yeah, I'm ready. You ready?
Talk
about the next one?
Let's go.
Let's talk about the cop. And again, I just want to show you where the cop is. You got it? On the left-hand side of the screen, kind of mid-career. And I was really excited to talk about the cop because some of you may know this about me, but my mother is a retired Chicago police officer, right? So I had an interesting childhood. I'll just put that out there. So at the age of 34, when I was 13 years old, my mid-career mother said to me, "I'm going to be a cop." And I thought, holy shit, that is insane, right? She had 4 kids. I was the oldest of 4. And I'm like, "Mom, why do you want to be a cop?" But then as she started talking, what I realized is that my mother was a cop before she was a cop, right? 4 kids, 2 husbands, had to get stuff done, right? This was in her DNA. And it turns out when she became a cop, it's not a tremendously difficult job. I hate to say it, no offense to my mom, and she would admit this. Once you learn it, you know it. There's no continuous education, right? You're not going to like the community college to learn how to be a better cop. You learn the rules and you enforce the rules. So that's very familiar to us in many human resources jobs and many human resources roles. The other thing that I think is very interesting with cops and HR cops is that we like to create structure out of chaos. So if you think about a cop who gets a call for a domestic violence assault, right, an alleged domestic violence assault, they have to make assumptions on the fly, so they're using some cognitive processing speed, but most of all, they're all about the rules, right? This is really important to them to enforce the rules. The other thing that I think is very important is that they have high detail orientation. I don't know about your mom. Just in general, you can't pull a fast one on moms, right? But with my mother, she was not buying anything. She paid attention to everything. And from my perspective, I think that's what's so interesting about the HR cop. They're focused on details. That is incredibly important. So if we look at the grid, one of the quotes I like from Reno 911 and from this cop is, "Have you documented that?" Is that familiar to you guys in your job? Right, it's all about compliance. And from my perspective, I think many organizations need the HR cop, but we receive all these messages from the SHRM magazine, from HR Tech, telling us, oh, we don't need compliance, it's too administrative. And I say F that, because here's what the cop does. The cop protects civil liberties in the workforce. Right? The cop pays people. The cop makes sure there are no bullies in your organization. The cop makes sure that women and minorities are treated fairly within an organization. So not only do you make the trains run on time, but you guarantee constitutional rights. For me, the cop is a really noble job. So if this is your job, this is probably mid-career for you. You're never going to be a VP of HR at a Wall Street banking firm, right? You should love this job. This job is so core and critical to the economy. It's so important to America. And if you're a cop, God damn it, embrace being a cop. Can I get an amen for that? All right, thank you very much. So Kris, what do you have to add about the cop?
Well, what I would say is the cop would never let Kris Dunn step on the stage in front of an open pit.
Right, yeah.
Because,
you can blame the
he would
unions
know
for that. Go ahead.
Hey, the other thing I would tell you, Laurie, and I would tell everybody, is that at times, I think anybody in HR above the senior level is going to feel like a cop.
Absolutely.
So there's migration in terms of how you feel, but what we know just through the DNA of this person with the cop with a high rules orientation, high detail orientation, tougher for this individual, and we're going to talk about career paths in a little bit, tougher for this individual to migrate to the right.
Absolutely.
Just tough. All right, so we're back to the 9 faces. So we're going to continue the tour. So we talked about the mall security guard, talked about the cop. We're going to continue up the ladder. So we're talking about low ability to innovate, drive change, but now we're going to the senior level. So we're going to the judge, okay? And the judge's mantra there is, low change, low ability to innovate. Now,
And
what
it's
I love
also, it's also her courtroom, her rules, right?
Yeah, let's look at
Yeah.
it. The quote here is, "This is my courtroom, and I can say what I want. When you become a judge, we'll talk." Translation, my layperson, get off my effing lawn. So the judge, think about where we're at now with the grid, okay? So we are at the senior level. And what's interesting about the judge for me is the judge will have like an incredibly high rule score, okay? They'll also have a high assertiveness score, because this is like that assertiveness level is one of the reasons that this person has been on the left-hand side of the grid in terms of the ability to innovate, drive change, and has reached that senior level. So the judge's whole mandate is to limit risk and follow rules. The other thing that's at play, like with the judge, and I see it with candidates, I see it with incumbents in the judge slot, is you got to think about the judge has arrived. And it's not on the slide, but the age of the judge is probably somewhere in the high 40s to anywhere in the 60s is your judge. And if they've arrived at a senior leadership position in your company, do you really think that if you're an assassin, and we'll cover that in just a second, do you really think the judge is going to allow you to take risks that would take them out of their job over time? They won't. How many of you know a judge? Right? Okay, and I hope the judge, if the judge is sitting next to you, hopefully they don't know they're a judge.
Wait, I want to know how many people in the room are judges themselves. Let's be honest. How many? Anybody? Oh, I don't know about that, Kris.
Okay, so extra details, bottom left. Cognitive processing speed can be low or high, because really the marker that matters most is their senior level, and they've got that high rules orientation, and they're very, very assertive. They'll take charge. They'll stay in charge. And they'll get done what they want to get done. They'll limit that risk. Details can be low or high, but tends to trend on the high side. And it's that they're politically savvy enough to know that risk can take them out. So that's what we see with that person. Now, what happens when we do, like in career level in this model is a little bit nebulous, right? Because some of you think that you are like senior level, but in terms of the size of companies, like in the big, ecosphere of this whole thing, you might actually be more mid-career and mid-level if you actually are VP of HR. But the thing about the judge, just related to that, is that when you do senior level positions, people will automatically, buyers, CEOs, people that will place you in this role, will automatically say that they want the box next to the judge or 2 boxes over, which if you remember was Gandhi. And we're going to talk about Gandhi in just a second. But there's a lot of organizations where the judge is warranted. Okay? Let me give you an example. So one of the searches that we're currently working on, and I'll say a sentence and then I'll just stop, okay? From a confidentiality perspective, they know exactly what they want, and they want a cop because it's a refinery, okay, with about 4,000 FTEs. It's a refinery, and they had like a big explosion one time. So some of you are in those types of businesses, right, where there's risk. So there's actually a role for the high compliance person. Depends on the business. So don't be swayed by the cop and the mall security. Now we get to the judge. Don't be swayed that it's a bad thing, because there's places where you would never want to place somebody to the right, and that refinery is a great example of one of those. So again, senior level, it's my courtroom. I can say what I want, and if you're some whippersnapper coming in like with your performance versus potential grid, just chill on that, because it ain't going in. All right, let's keep moving. 9 faces. There's the grid again. Next up, I'm going to give you one of my favorites, the grinder. How many of you are grinders? How many of you automatically associate with the grinder mentality? I know I do. Okay, so the grinder is that middle box of the 9 faces. Quick, give me a quick play. Who's the Brady in the middle?
So does everybody know? Jim Halpert.
It's Alice?
Oh, the Brady?
All right, that doesn't match then.
No.
All right, scratch that. So the grinder.
That was unprepared on our part, by the way.
Yeah, so that's me being low rules. So the grinder, think about this. How many of you serve what I call a client group, where you're responsible for a number of people and they come to you for everything related to HR, right? I mean, most of you have some type of client group. So in HR America, the grinder in this model is the person with the client group, okay? And if we look at their DNA, like you can tell a grinder, remember the things: processing speed, rules orientation, detail orientation, and assertiveness, okay? The perfect person to be a grinder, to be that HR manager, that director of HR, is somebody who's in the middle, maybe not a processing speed. They can be as smart and as quick as you want them to be, but somebody in the middle of rules orientation, detail orientation, and assertiveness. The reason for that is like having a client group and doing employee relations one day, like negotiating an offer the next day, like dealing with all the personalities in the client group. That's something that takes patience, and it takes the ability to flow in and out. So if you go too far on one side, on rules or detail orientation, it really becomes like a non-negotiable area where you can't serve different people with different needs. So the grinder is that client group person. And what we see is the people who are successful in client groups for long periods of time without a lot of drama, almost always, their processing speed may be off the chart, but they almost always have rules, details, and assertiveness that are somewhere around the middle of that bell curve, okay? Now, they might have one of those that's a little stronger than the others, either up or down, and that's what dictates, when we get to career pathing, that's what dictates where a grinder serving a client group can actually go, if that makes sense.
So I do have something to add about the grinder, because I think many of us in human resources get into that HR generalist or business partner role, and we really struggle, and we'll talk about career pathing in a moment, but we struggle with, do we want to move up? Do we want to take on bigger roles and bigger responsibilities? And Kris, you believe that the grinder is the heart and soul of the HR organization, right?
Well, I do, because I think anybody who manages a client group of people and has that broad set of responsibilities, I mean, I think that's where the rubber meets the road. So I'm passionate. That's my definition of the generalist.
Yeah.
There's different definitions with that. That's my definition, and I think that's what really makes HR work, regardless of the size of the company.
And I think it's, from my perspective, it's also one of the most interesting jobs in HR. One of the things I enjoyed the most, and this is just based on my assessment and what I like, was really seeing a variety of different things every day, and it's never, honest to God, when you're an HR generalist, it's never boring. You are never bored. So that's the grinder.
That is true. The quote here is funny because it's part of this character on The Office. I don't think any of them actually know my real name.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's actually true of the grinder, just to contrast that, because I think everybody knows their name because they rely on them so much.
Or knows their phone number or their text message number, yeah.
Absolutely. So there's the grinder in the middle. Now, where they can go, we're going to talk about career paths in just a second. So if you feel like you're a grinder, a lot of that depends on your DNA. And if you've got like one strength, like low rules or high details, that's going to dictate where you go. Laurie?
Yeah, well, I get the lovely distinction of presenting on The Mentor because I'm from Chicago, and also because when I saw The Mentor, I was like, oh yeah, Oprah, right? How many of you are Oprah fans in here? Anybody? No? Gosh, what? What? Come on, I love Oprah. You get a car, right? Okay, no. No, it just bombed. It just freaking bombed. I was so excited. That's why I signed up for this. So from my perspective, I was excited to present on the mentor because I took the assessment and I really thought about my career. And I moved as far as I could go in human resources without freaking killing myself, to be honest with you. I took a job at Pfizer. I reported to the chief HR officer. I had an 1,800 person client group, and I went, that's enough. So I got out of HR, but within my career, I've peripherally stayed in human resources, and I'm getting a little bit older now, right? So I offer marketing advice, consulting advice. I do a lot of performance coaching for HR professionals. And what I have found and what the assessment told me is that I am not who I thought I was. I really thought I was Angelina Jolie, right? Coming in and just killing it, and we're going to talk about that model in a second. But the assessment really made me think differently about my career. And as I'm now almost 40, right? Kris, I'm getting a little bit older now. I am moving more into the mentor role. I have young women within human resources who are coming to me. And the mentor role, I think, is actually one of the most trusted roles and one of the most interesting roles within the organization because CEOs love the mentor. So let me tell you a little bit about this role. This role is all about innovation. It's all about experimentation. And remember where we are at the grid. We're at the top, right? It's somebody who's reached kind of that pinnacle. They're not looking for their next great HR job. What they are doing is they're looking to develop people. They're looking to make things happen, and they want to say yes. So I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of working for an HR leader who says yes, dream big, but that person is amazing, and that person has the trust and I think kind of the inner guidance of the CEO to just make amazing things happen. The other thing I want to tell you about the mentor, which is so incredibly important to me, is that the mentor really believes in developing the next generation. So if you're a mentor in human resources, you are mentoring the center of this grid. So you mentor the grinder, but you are really interested in the rookie who we're just about to talk about, because that rookie has a lot of potential, and you're interested in mentoring the assassin, because you want to keep the assassin and eventually move the assassin into a leadership role. Whether or not you can do it is still debatable, but mentoring is so important to this amazing HR leader. So if you have a man or a woman in your life like this that you report to or you have a relationship with, you should feel tremendously lucky. I think it's the best role on the grid. What do you think, Kris?
I like it. I wouldn't say it's the best. Do you want to hit the quote too?
Oh, yeah. You know, I need my reading glasses because I told you I'm almost 40. This is like the crappy part of this.
I'll give you the big
there
one.
we go. For every one of us that succeeds, it's because there's someone there to show you the way. And I've really felt like in my HR career, I've had that. In my career as a social media professional and as a consultant, I've had that with you, Kris.
Oh, well, thank you.
I know. It's the nicest thing I'll say about him all day. And I really feel like if I don't do that for a younger generation of men and women, I'm really failing as an HR leader and as a professional. So the mentor is a really important role.
Now, as someone who's not as tied to the image of Oprah, the quote I would give you about the mentor is, here's what the mentor says to people down the organization. She says, what do you want to work on? And she gets an answer to that, and she says, go do it, okay? Because one of the things that the mentor is she's very confident, and she's very secure where she's at. Unlike the judge, she's not worried about the viability of her career, because she knows even if a project fails below her, she knows she's got the political capital, the smarts, the instincts to survive at that senior leadership level. And I would go to the DNA markers there. High processing speed. She's quick. She's quick on her feet. She's got mid to high assertiveness, so she's assertiveness to get things done in the C-suite. She's got enough detail orientation not to get caught, and then she's low to mid rules, which all of that combined allows her to say, what do you want to work on? Go do it. And then whatever happens, people love working for the mentor because of not only this quote, but the quote I just gave you as well.
So I wonder, let's do a show of hands. How many of you have a mentor or someone like this in your career right now? Oh, you got to work on it. She exists out there, absolutely. So keep your hands up if you have a mentor like this. you should sing her praises or his praises in this room and talk about her and share that person, because that person is really going to change the face of human resources in the future.
And for some of you in an HR capacity, you may have to look outside the HR function.
Good point.
In your company to find a mentor. Because what we find, like with project-oriented work, if you can't get it done in your own organization, there are certainly sponsors out there that will help you get it done in some different functional areas. So that's a mentor.
I think that's great.
Yeah. So back to the 9 faces. We've got a couple more for you.
Wait, I want to talk about the rookie. Can
Okay.
I start the rookie?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, God.
Go ahead.
Okay, because you can look at me and tell I like sports, right? How many of you are big sports fans? Okay, yeah. Well, we're in Chicago, right? So Kris had a different image for the rookie. I won't tell you what it is, but I, in all of my sports wisdom, said, oh, your image sucks, dude. You got to put up LeBron James. And Kris and I are debating about this, but for me, LeBron James is really the only guy I know who's universal and who used to be a rookie, right? And what really resonates with me about LeBron James is that back in the day when he was just a kid, I think he was drafted at the age of 10, right? I mean, he was a wee little thing, right? He was the great hope for that shitty town that is Cleveland, right? They put all of their heart and soul in poor LeBron James, and LeBron James was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna take this team to the championship. What, do they win at the Super Bowl? I don't know what they win at, right? So, but honest to God, LeBron James was going to be the guy, and I think all of that potential really resonates. It's the potential, it's the swagger, it's the ability to get things done. He's like, yeah, what is next? But listen, LeBron has since moved on. He's gotten a little bit older. So we're going to give you our Twitter addresses at the end of this presentation. If you can think of a better rookie, we'd love to hear it. Anybody want to shout out a better rookie? Oh, we've got, wait, we've got Anne Hathaway. Why Anne Hathaway? Oh, Devil Wears Prada. Does that resonate with anybody? Yeah, sorry, Matt. That, by the way, that guy's got a PhD right there. Okay, so if you can think of somebody, and as Kris describes the rookie, if you can think about that persona and give us a better, more universal definition for it, we're open to it. So Kris, that's all I wanted to say.
Got it. So, hey, we're coming down the home stretch now. So the rookie, you see early career, lots of ability to innovate, drive change. How many rookies do we have here? Okay? It's usually the young guns out there. We're using the LeBron image. Here's what it is. So it's somebody with basically no experience. They don't know what the hell they're talking about, right? Sorry, dude. That's all right. Hey, you're confident. You've got swagger, which is something that all rookies do. Here's the deal about the rookie. I set you up for that. Rookies always have processing speed that's off the charts. Okay, so they're going to be way to the right of that bell curve on processing speed. You can throw a bunch of stuff at them. They're just going through it. You see the quote Laurie went with here on LeBron James. Ever since I was a kid, I was always the winner. Okay?
How many of you have kids like that? Oh, man, I know you do.
So high processing speed, super high assertiveness, and low rules orientation, okay? And those things combined with the rookie usually get manifested by the word ambition, okay? So people view the rookie as very ambitious. Rookie, are you ambitious? Of course you are. You don't even answer it. I know, you hesitated. Of course you're ambitious. So the rookie is one of the most ambitious people you'll find. Here's the deal about the rookie. Consulting model. Okay, if you guys know the world of HR, Mercer, Hewitt, any of those guys. If you know McKinsey, we talked about McKinsey, this is their campus recruiting program. They will not hire anybody who doesn't fit those DNA markers on the left, because in the consulting world, you're going to be really smart, you're going to be really ambitious. Guess what, sucker? You're going out on the road 4 days a week, and you're going to do the work. You're going to fake it until you make it on behalf of our company, and it's up or out. We'll decide like at the 2-year mark whether you get it done or not. Rookies are all in for that because they've got confidence, they've got swagger, and they think they can get it done. Remember where we're at. The mall security guard is not in for that. He's not in for, oh, you're going to send me on the road and I got to fake it till I make it. Won't do it. It's just not in their DNA. So the rookie is that consulting model, and the rookie will drive you crazy. The other quote I would give you, how many of you have a rookie in your organization? The kid, that drives you crazy, right? Out there. The other thing is, what am I working on next, right? You give them something, and the dangerous part about the rookie is if you've got them early career in an area that handles a lot of transactions, they better be up or out like in probably 18 months, or it's going to like flame out, or they're going to drive you crazy and you'll need therapy.
I think that's good, yeah.
So that's where the rookie is, okay? And we love the rookie. And by the way, big HR organizations, just like those consulting firms, hire a lot of rookies, okay? Smaller organizations, how many of you are in an HR shop with 4 or less people, company-wide? Expect a lot, right? Because welcome to America. That's where the value is being created. Nothing against the big companies, but that's the reality for most of us. I've been in those shops. For the rest of you, you're going to need the rookie to actually, you don't have a shared center. The shared center is you, right? So you're going to need the rookie to do transactions, and it's harder to take the leap of faith to hire a rookie if you buy into the model and you know what you're getting. All right.
That's good. I'm cool with that.
Next, the assassin. We're almost done.
Yeah.
We've got 2 more left.
Wait, do you know what movie this is from? It's like from every movie she's ever been in.
Yeah,
right?
it's like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You know, you just like check them off.
Is it
It's
Salt?
like every.
Salt?
She's got to have a gun. And by the way, I chose this image. You know, Laurie didn't go with this. This is strictly.
I think it's too mean. She's got a mean face there.
So the assassin in your organization. So just like the rookie, the assassin is off the charts in terms of the ability to innovate, drive change, and add value. But there's a lot of problems with the assassin. You guys remember that I told you about half the assassins we've placed, like in this model, aren't with their company, okay? And it's because people wanted that. We placed it. And assassins have a high flame out percentage, okay? They flame out all the time for some very specific reasons. The quote from the assassin, also Malcolm X, by any means necessary.
Oh, we debated this quote, though.
Yeah, we did debate the
Yeah.
quote. I could come up with some other quotes.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of my way
Yeah, that's good.
comes to mind, and some other things. With
Some other
various,
vulgar things.
Yeah,
Kris
various
doesn't
curse
let you
words.
know he's
Hey,
incredibly vulgar.
here's the marker. So we're mid-career. So this is above the rookie on the grid. The markers are very distinct with the assassin. And the markers simply are very high processing speed, high on the assertiveness scale. Okay, I can see it because I've seen so many of these. High on the assertiveness scale. So you're like, if you guys are looking at it, everything's over here. And then the rules like score is not here, it's like over here. It's the lowest rule score you'll ever see. So that is the assassin. It's that combination of high processor, highly assertive, low rules, does not give about like what people think in the organization. Okay, and my experience with the assassin, very dynamic. You know, if you're looking for change in the organization, you want somebody to stir it up, the assassin is a great place to do that. It's a great candidate to do that. Problem is, when it comes down to actually doing like normal HR stuff, like all human beings have to do, the assassin really doesn't want to be bothered with that. So here's where the assassin plays. The assassin really is the best fit for large HR organizations that have project work, okay? And the reason why that's a fit is because they don't have to manage people, and the projects they're driving through the funnel have, you know, the endorsement of the C-level that we're going to do this, which means they can get in their truck and run over as many people as they want. Happens all the time. Happens all the time. And this is the other reason. The last thing I'll give you on the assassin is this is the reason why if you look at the resume of an assassin, and I don't even need, like at this point, I don't even need the assessment so much. If I see like certain titles and certain pedigrees of company, the other thing you'll see on the resume of an assassin is really a run and a series of 1.5 to 2 year stints at companies with great brands. Because what happens is they get in, they do some work, and either the project ends or just as likely, they get asked to leave. Because they have a hard time assimilating into like a normal HR organization.
So make that point about the judge again, because you talked about it very early. The judge has no tolerance for this.
Yeah, the assassin will drive the judge and the cop, as you would expect, on those different sides of the continuum. will drive them absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And once the judge has an experience actually hiring an assassin, they don't know it. You know, a lot of people, most of the people in the world don't know anything about this model. They'll know the physical markers on the resume and even the verbal cues that says, oh, okay, high processor, highly assertive, low rules. They'll know that, like through the interview, because they'll say, hey, Dwayne, you know, I hired Dwayne and he ended up being like an assassin. And now I'm interviewing Laurie or Marin, and I'm like, they're assassins too. I want nothing to do with that.
Look at Dwayne. He's such an assassin right there. Look at him.
And I mean, so this is like a very real one. And by the way, in the model, like if I asked everybody in the room before I gave that thing, I just showed you the grid and I gave you like 2 lines from each one of these. You know, like the stuff we've done in other conferences would say 35, 40, 45% of you would want to be the assassin because it's fun. You get to tear shit up, right? And you get to run over people with your truck and say, hey, it's just my job. But it's not, at the end of the day, a super cool place to be. So by any means necessary, that's the assassin, and it's an interesting profile.
How does the mentor get along with?
Hey, we're not taking, I'm high rules. We're not taking questions yet.
I'm overruling her, and I'm going to take your question. Go ahead.
If the mentor is at a higher level than the assassin's working for the mentor, how do they get along? Does that usually gel?
They get along much, much better than the judge. And it goes back, if you remember what I talked about in the mentor, you would know the mentor, like if you talk to them, because that high processing speed, they've got low to mid rules, so they respect kind of where the assassin's coming from, and they're just confident enough in their ability at that senior level to manage the assassin. So they would be the one person. That's why they're called the mentor, right? They would be the one person with the DNA really to guide that person and perhaps not like remove them from the organization 18 months later. You know, they could keep them funneled enough and coach them enough. There's a coaching element to it. Good question.
So we have about 13 minutes left, so that's why I'm being a cop right now. So
Love
I just,
the question.
Yeah, it's a good question, and we'll have time at the end to take more.
Low rules, little higher rules.
Clipboard. I got a clipboard. What can I say? I'm owning it. Let's talk about Gandhi. You want to talk about Gandhi?
Yeah, let's talk about
All
Gandhi.
right, because I had this experience where I worked in human resources at a company that I will not name, and they really wanted to shake things up, and they hired a VP of HR who was a sales guy. Ugh. Have you guys had that? Oh, it was a freaking nightmare. Holy crap. So Gandhi, right? Gandhi is a guy that swoops in and is supposed to fundamentally change the way we do human resources. And the one thing that's true about Gandhi is this guy does not exist, right? He comes into the organization, he or she may do what he or she likes for about 18 months, and they piece the hell out after that 18 months, and you still have the same fundamental problems or issues or complexities that you had in human resources before Gandhi came in. So Kris, I don't know what you have to add about Gandhi, but Gandhi doesn't exist.
So if you guys remember the funnel, and we haven't ran assessments, you know, it's 7,000 total candidates, and we ran assessments on all the live phone screens. Okay, that's part of the package, and I forget what the number was, but we estimate Gandhi's like way under a percentage. I've actually seen like 2 or 3 Gandhis, and to kind of pair out what Laurie said, these are the people that are either in big organizations where they start like flowing people in and out of HR. These are the people that might come into HR. By the way, Gandhi, who was born and bred in HR, ultimately gets to a certain age and says, you know what? I hate all of this stuff to the left so much, I'm out, and they become a VP of sales. So
That is 100% true.
so it's a worldview, and again, like the thing, like whether you're a cop or you're the assassin or you're Gandhi, like through like working on the model and seeing candidates and talking to people that are trying to fill HR positions, there's no right or wrong. There's just more about fit for the position in question. But Gandhi literally doesn't exist because it's just too fluid.
That's right. So we're going to talk about career pathing, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you take it?
Okay, I'll take career pathing. So real quick, these percentages, and I know you guys will get the slides if you have a hard time seeing this. So when we got down to the phone screen side, we've ran assessments on most of those. So we've seen kind of the DNA profile. So what we did is we look at that DNA profile, and then we look at the career level, and we make like a qualitative call. on career level, whether they're early career, mid-career, senior level. And by the way, I got to tell you, the hardest thing to judge is an HR director or a VP of HR, whether they are mid-career or senior level. Because I've been a VP of HR with a client group of 6,000 people, and I've been a VP of HR in a client group, a company with like 300 people. And it's different. So that's the hardest thing to judge. But when we do that and we sort it out, this is what it looks like.
Which might be surprising to some people because everybody in the room probably associated themselves as either the grinder or assassin. And look at those numbers. They're lower than you may suspect. And the mall security guard is probably higher than you expect.
So if you look at those numbers and you look how it stacks up, it's like my estimate is about 50% of the HR world is on the bottom row, early career. Okay? About 40% is on the second row, mid-career, and about 10% is at the top. Does that make sense to you? I mean, it doesn't look great because you're saying, wow, the bottom's heavy. But when you start actually thinking about an org chart, it actually makes sense the way these things kind of fleshed out. So if I look at these, you got mall security guard 25%, clerk that's similar to a mall security guard, we didn't get into it at 10%, rookie 15%. Laurie, I'll stop there. You wanted to say something?
No, I was going to say, let's move on. We're running short on time, dude.
High rules.
High rules.
So let's talk about career pathing, okay? And if all of you knew who you were, here's what kind of research and just kind of being in the field tells us about the career paths. For a mall security guard or a clerk, those people become either grinders or they become cops. They become cops because it's that high rules, high details. They become grinders because in a lot of organizations, making the trains run on time and having a client group, that's something that's a very valuable skill set for a grinder with a client group. Cops become grinders. Okay, so they might go from like a manager of payroll position into like a director of HR with a full-fledged client group. That makes them a grinder. Or they become judges. Okay, in the right organizations, like those people, very, very valuable. Assassins either become grinders or they actually become mentors. So that's an error in the
that's a
arrow.
typo. Low rules, low detail.
So they become grinders or mentors, or they get asked to leave. Okay, and really like the best, like what happens to assassins if the organization, if the mentor is there. Back to your question, if the mentor is there, projects kind of run its course, or everybody's kind of getting sick of the assassin, they're running over a lot of bodies. The quickest way to get a rookie or an assassin to shut the hell up is to give them a client group. You follow me? So all of a sudden, I define a client group. You might be in a company with 200 people. And client group could be anywhere, like in a bigger company, it could be anywhere from 200-300 people up to 1,000 or more. And if you want to shut an assassin up and show the assassin what the real world looks like, give them a client group where there's a lot of employee relations and things like that, a lot of clutter, and they'll shut up. That's actually a source of voluntary turnover for assassins as well. True story, right? Rookies, just like I said, either become assassins, they get that project role, or in similar capacity, what am I working on next? What's next for me from a career perspective? Here's your client group. Now go deal with that for 3 years and shut the hell up.
I love it. I love it. So we're going to leave you with 4 things you need to know, right? This is like an HRCI requirement, so we have to do it. And we're very proud to do it. And I think the first thing that I want to talk about just very briefly is figure out who you are. Remember at the beginning, Kris and I said to you, please think about who you think you are and think about who you really are. So if you're a VP of Human Resources at a company with 50 people, now we've given you a model, really try to understand who you are and where you fall in this group. And also, if you're a rookie, you've got a couple of years to really think about, is Human Resources the right job for you? Because once you get locked in, unfortunately, it's hard to get the hell out. So really, from my perspective, today's journey begins with you really thinking about this model, trying to find your persona, and really understanding where you are and where you can go.
And then lesson 2 is really figure out who you have. So whether you're a VP of HR with a big group, or if you're a director of HR with 2 people working for you, you not only want to figure out who you are, but you want to figure out who you have. Because once again, big HR organizations can have all 9 boxes filled. For the rest of us, which includes the majority of the room, when you have an open position, or you get new budgeted headcount, you've got to make a decision. So in order to make an accurate decision, you've got to figure out who you already have on your team to make sure you know where the gap is, and then make a decision, do you really want to bring the rookie in? Do you really want to bring an assassin in and put them in a grinder role? All those are questions that you're going to have to answer, and that's why once you make that assessment, you can figure out what you really need. And I think the hardest thing, like in this model, is, it amazes, well, it doesn't amaze me because I view it as like really valuable, but I'm always like engaged, and I love the fact that people will pay for HR search because I'm a believer, right? I think like getting the best HR person is one of the best things you can do, and you should do more than making sure it hits Indeed. But like trying to figure out what you really need for those small groups with 2 or 3 people, it's the toughest thing you'll do because odds are the more you reach to the right with ability to innovate, drive change, the more you'll miss. Not only because the organization like rejects them on site, but the fact that what you have them doing, the further you get to the right in a small HR group, the person going into that role won't be fully satisfied. And I'm a huge motivational fit type person.
I love it. And I think, Kris, that message is so important because so many of you in this room, either right now or in the future, may be in a position to hire an HR professional, and you need to recruit accordingly. So that means 2 things. Number 1, do not settle. So very often we settle, A, because we don't want to pay a search fee, or B, because we're tired and we just think, this person will be fine, we'll groom them. Do not settle when you have the opportunity to hire an HR professional. And the second thing I think is really important is don't overhire. If you see someone who's great and amazing, I know it's a war for talent out there, but don't hire somebody who's going to come in and hate the job from day one. So it's really important, if you have that honor and privilege of having headcount open, you recruit accordingly. And so I think this gives us an opportunity to talk about which one are you and really the next steps in figuring it out, right, Kris?
Absolutely. Does anybody else get the feeling like when Laurie does one of those passionate things that we're like at a spoken word event? Like where
I do like 50 of these a year, so I'm sorry, I just can bang them out like that, so.
No, so hey, we're happy to answer your questions both after we're done in just a few minutes, and then also the tweet up the social event tonight.
Yeah.
Really engaged in the model. So if you want to talk about it, you can seek out Laurie. You can seek out.
And if you want to know about the model, one of the things we want to force you to do is get on Twitter and tweet to us, and we will tell you how you can learn more and do an assessment for yourself. So you have to go on Twitter, you have to find us, you have to ask to do the assessment, and we're really happy to hook you up. So thank you, Kris. Thank you, everybody else.
Thanks, everybody.
See you tonight.
Good job.